Hey everybody, thanks and welcome back to Spotlight On. Today we have Adam Trest with us, and he is an artist out of Laurel, Mississippi. He's doing some really amazing things. He has Adam Trest Home in Laurel, I'm sorry. We'll get to that in just a second. So anyway, let's just go right into it. This is Adam Trest. Adam, welcome, and thank you for coming on Spotlight On.
Thank you for having me. Sorry to just like jump in on your intro. I apologize.
Oh no, that's okay. So that store's not long.
Yeah. Laurel. So we made the decision at Christmas of this past year that we were going to close the store and allow my wife to focus on another venture that she had gotten in on, and for me to get to focus on designing or painting and designing as opposed to running a business. So we sort of found a happy end place and ended right there at the beginning of the year and have been doing full-time studio work since January.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so not a bad thing. It's a great thing, but it just a little career path move there.
Well, how is that now? You went in and that was a big project. That space that you had was a full, like I got to see pictures of it online, and there's just packed full of stuff. How is it swapping back into full artist mode after doing something like that?
We started the business 6 years ago. And it started as just making products. And so just stumbling our way through it, found people that could print fabric for us, found people that could produce pillows. We went into lots of interior modes, lots of prints of work. We did wholesale for a full year and a half before we opened the retail store. And then we were opening the retail store. We did that for 4 years. And so it was a lot. I mean, we were constantly producing product, filling the store. It feels weird to be in almost September now and not have like a full Christmas collection already in production. Because when you are in that retail mindset, I mean, you're constantly trying to get ahead and stay ahead. And so to now be able to just paint and be kind of in the moment with my work, it's been a transition, but a really great one. It's allowed me to really focus on some of those. I mean, over the last 6 years, those ideas that I really wanted, but I didn't think they would really cross over into the product development realm, but I really just wanted to paint them. And so now for the last, 8 months now, I've really gotten to kind of dive into some of those ideas and really get some of these pieces out of my head and onto paper and onto panel.
Gotta almost feel like a relief to be able to do that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And, with all of the state of what's going on in our world right now, our timeline couldn't have really been better because we've had so much time now at home. I have 2 daughters, so at home with the girls, I've moved my studio out of my actual studio and into our living room, just because it's become sort of like this creative process of I can work and be with them through all of this. But this has been a really big time of growth for us, for sure.
And did you grow up in Laurel?
I did, yeah. We moved here when I was in the 3rd grade, and I left for college, and then I lived in Fairhope, Alabama for about a little over a year. And that was cool. I lived on a sailboat, so just kind of shaking things up, getting a little bit of a different experience. And then it wasn't too long after that I met my wife, and we both decided that we would move home, and have been here ever since.
Now I was going to ask you about the sailboat, because I found that one snippet about the sailboat in one tiny little article somewhere. But so was that in between your time at Starkville and then coming back to Laurel?
Yeah, so 2009, in December, I graduated from Mississippi State with my BFA. I moved home and I found a garage apartment on the avenues in Laurel, which is our historic district. We had a really amazing community during that time of just young people that were home and trying to make it, whether that be videography or, photography, fine art. We just had this really cool community of young people. And I managed a little gallery. I had my own little store for art lessons. It was sort of like the store that I had that was like our big store that we just closed. But this was like me trying to figure it out as a, I mean, I don't even know how old I was, young, 22 maybe. And so we did that. I did that for a little while. And then I found this break where I kind of panicked. I was like, I could turn around and 10 years from now, I could be doing the exact same thing. So if I don't take this opportunity and jump at it, then I'm going to miss an opportunity. And so I had the opportunity. I had some family that had moved to Fairhope, and I really loved the location. But as I started looking with my my artist budget, there was not a whole lot of opportunities there, places to live in the areas that I wanted to live. I wanted to be right in the middle of everything. And so I figured up that a mortgage on a sailboat was cheaper than rent anywhere. And so I had a 1973 Pearson 10 meter that I lived on for about a year. And there's some good stories about living on that boat. But it was a really nice season, but I don't think I would like to do it full time.
That would be its own strange adjustment. Like
you're
so used to living and sleeping on land, and then all of a sudden, okay, let's just sleep on a boat.
Yeah, and I mean, it was great. I mean, some of the best sleep I've ever gotten, actually. And the marina that I lived in didn't have real good cell phone service and no wireless or internet or anything. So it was really, when I look back on it now that I'm, that's been almost 10 years ago. When I look back on it now, I go, that was like the most like introspective time, because I just read a lot and I ate a lot of good food. And, I mean, I went to bed with the sunset over the Mobile Bay and woke up on the water. I mean, it was a really cool time to figure out what I was doing with my life.
So I'm going to have some of your art for people to see, and hopefully I'll have it in the video as well. But for anyone that's not able to see it and is just listening, describe to us your art. Yeah,
so I just walked through this with so I'm represented by the Caron Gallery in Tupelo, and I just walked through this with them. I guess it was June, July, somewhere like that. I was their featured artist for the month, and I got the opportunity to sit down and do this, talk about my style. And I wrote a blog for them, and I titled it the Language of Walter, because I have this sort of weird connection with Walter Anderson that I have grown up. And from the time we moved to Laurel, I had this amazing art teacher, Lisa Thames. Her work's amazing. You should look at it. She volunteered and taught art at the elementary school that I went to. And the elementary school I went to was right across the street from the Lauren Rogers Museum of Art. And she walked us over one day and introduced us to the museum. And it's an amazing little gem that, not little, it's huge. And it has so many great pieces in its collection. And I just remember there was a cup on a shelf that had cats painted on it. But it was Walter Anderson. It was a piece of his pottery. And just from that moment, just seeing his pattern and his design and just the composition of his work really struck me as like a 10-year-old. I mean, you don't think about that kind of stuff as a 10-year-old, but it really just captured me. And so from that point on, it was learning about the 7 motifs and the thoughts behind his work. And, in a middle school and high school, reading the Horn Island logs and getting into his brain and how he worked and how he thought. And I was really fortunate in college. I was able to study under Brent Funderburk. And, he did an amazing, he picked all his favorite pieces basically from the Anderson collection. And he took them across the Southeast showing them. And he was preparing for that show when I was in his class. And he brought them into our class, and, we got to look through these original Walter Andersons on 8.5 by 11 sheets of typing paper. And it was just like I was trying to explain it to my brother after the fact. I was like, imagine, he's a musician. And I was like, imagine your favorite band just walked into the room, dead or living, it doesn't matter. They walked into the room and you got to be close to them. I was like, that's what I experienced that day. And just getting through all that, and then coming into my own as an artist after college, my work has sort of come into this style of taking, like I called it, the language of Walter, taking that composition and the structure and the pattern, but me taking it on and playing with it and playing with those lines and those shapes. And I've always, I grew up in this house that it wasn't even our land, but we were attached to 100 acres. And so my whole childhood was like going through the woods and seeing wildlife. And even the house that we live in now, like we live in a subdivision, but we have like deer that roam in our backyard. And it's just really crazy that's part of our life every day. And so a lot of that sort of wildlife imagery, Mississippi flora and fauna, Southern flora and fauna, it pops up constantly in my work, with just the playfulness of that negative and positive space. So I don't know if that answered your question. That was a really long answer for a short question.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. Well, no, it was because all those things are, I feel like they're things that we keep inside as artists and we think about constantly, and we're like, oh, this and this and this and this. And then getting to hear you verbalize your entire mental process is so refreshing. You just get to take that in.
It's funny because, like when I was in high school, I was your typical high school kid, like anything to get out of Mississippi. Like we were talking about that. Like you left home and then came back, and that was the thought process. I went through almost 4 years of architecture school before I changed my major into fine art. And my parents were real excited about that. And but like you push yourself trying to get out. And I was, pictured myself, I'm an architect in like Seattle or Chicago. And like I had this lifestyle in my head of where I was going with my work. And I was going to do the thing that, made me wealthier, made me whatever. And, having that little opportunity to move home right after college before I moved to Fairhope, and seeing sort of our town and my home through a different, with potential, instead of I've got to get out of here, being away from it and then coming home and seeing that, like our downtown had the potential, our town has the potential, the buildings had the potential. We just had to be able to pour ourselves into it and find this beautiful thing of what makes our town special. And so it was things like the Lauren Rogers Museum. I mean, holy cow, like there's a Chihuly chandelier hanging in the stairway, like in Laurel, Mississippi, like what is happening? But we have these great pieces that are there to inspire us and are there to, to be sort of the gateway that we walk through as we go through the journey of this art world that we're in. Being able to see that as an adult was really a big deal. And then to take on, like our state is a state of artists and writers. And the arts in Mississippi really is just unbelievable. And so to take that heritage that we already have and then to get to be the next generation of it, it's pretty cool. That's like my favorite thing about Mississippi right now.
Yeah, we're in a point of recovery. We're in a point of regeneration. We're in a point of revitalization. I can see it. I definitely see it coming back after I moved away and into my hometown. They've revitalized downtown. They're doing these beautiful things, and they're wanting people to come back. Yeah, which is wonderful because it gives us so many opportunities to go in and beautify what we already knew was wonderful.
Absolutely.
Tell me, you mentioned it. Tell me about Caron Gallery. Tell me about how that all happened, and because that's every artist's dream.
Yeah, Kim and I circled each other on social media for a minute. And I was watching her gallery grow, and she was watching me. I had my store at the time. And Mississippi Magazine put on it's called, what is it called? Sort of like mistletoe, but it's in the spring. Vendors came from all over the state. It was really cool the way that they had it laid out.
Like a big market.
It was like a big market, yeah. And they laid it out in the shape of the state of Mississippi. So my booth for my store was down where Laurel was on the floor plan, and Kim was way up north in Tupelo. And so we were loading our stuff in, and every time we'd come in through the docks, I'd go to the left down south to Laurel, and she'd take a right going up to Tupelo, and we crossed paths. And I knew her from social media, but not well enough to like speak, and she knew me from social media, but not well enough to speak. And so we crossed paths a couple of times. Well, before the week was over, it was like a 3-day thing. I finally went up and was like, "Hey, I'm Adam Trest. I've got to meet you. Like, we've got to get together." And that kind of sparked a conversation, and it's led to this really cool relationship that we have she just has this really amazing thought process about art and about our state. She shows the best that we have to offer, for sure, in the gallery. And it's cool because we have sort of through that. Tupelo is it's a journey from here in Laurel. It's a good drive, but we have this network that's really cool. I'll get a random text message, just be like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so from Ocean Springs, and I'm going to Tupelo this weekend. Do you need me to bring anything up?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. Let me load you down, and stop and have a cup of coffee with me." And so we've had this sort of cool network of artists that we've sort of developed where, I know if I need something, there's a list of artists that I can call anywhere in the States. And because of our connection there at the gallery, she's helped make those relationships into like a cool network, which has been really great. And so getting to work with her has been awesome. And it's been my first gallery experience. So it's kind of making all the rest of them. And the next gallery I pick up, I'm like, "Oh, you got some big shoes to fill,"
Well, and then you've got now where artists are carried by multiple galleries at the same time, and they separate
absolutely.
out which works that'll carry. Oh, you carry my watercolors, you carry my drawings,
right?
Exactly. Because they're catered to interest, and her gallery might not fill an interest that part of your artwork needs to fill.
Absolutely.
What a great relationship.
Yeah,
and
it's cool because it's fun too, because from my retail background, I think my conversations with her are probably different than some of her other artists, because I'm like, "Does this fit your market? No? Okay, I'll paint over it," because it's coming from retail. I think I have an attitude of, I love my pieces, and they're getting out that thing that I need to express, that I need to say. But it's also, at the end of the day, it's my livelihood. It's that threshold that we talked about. This is the way that I make my money, or make my career, make my, pay my bills, And so there also has to be that level of, is this going to sell? Is this going to be a huge piece that just sits on the wall for a long time? Like, how do I translate the time that I put into it into making it worth my while?
Yeah. Well, and now that you're back to full-time artist, that has to be something that's a little bit more on your mind.
For sure.
Yeah. You've got the luxury artists that, they sell X amount of pieces and they make a ton of money off of it because, their name got hyped and it just all worked out. And then they just go and create whatever they want. Yeah. Sell or no sell, doesn't matter, change the world. But yeah, for the rest of us, we really have to work at it a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've got another really cool kind of connection and thing going on for some of my viewers, because a lot of my people that see this will know either your name or your artwork when I show it from HGTV.
Sure. Yeah.
So tell us all about that. Tell us how that worked out, because I know, what's the show, Hometown?
Yeah, Hometown. Yeah. So that is still such a weird thing. It's just bizarre, because like, if you've watched Hometown at all, the people on Hometown are the people in my town. Like, there's no other way to really say that. Like, the plumber, the Purvises, they've been our plumbers. Like, as long as I've owned property, we call the plumber, or we call the Purvises, but now they're on television. So now they're like the television plumbers. And like Mike, the hardwood floor guy, he's been around our town. Like, these people, you expect television to be scripted, and you expect it to be full of actors. And we've gone through this phase now where, like, that's our people. Like, that contractor that just walked by on the screen went to high school with me. Like, that is weird. And it's cool because, like, you see these people and we don't really think anything of it. We might as well be watching a YouTube video of some friends of ours that just are making a fun YouTube show. But then you walk around our downtown on a Saturday and you realize that it's been probably 20 minutes since you've seen a Mississippi car tag. And you're like, these people are from everywhere and they're here to see our town. And you know, we've, like my parents, when we moved back in 1995, I guess, somewhere along that line, we moved back because, according to my mom, there was no place better than Laurel, Mississippi. So that was the mindset that I've grown up was. Laurel was home. It was a beautiful place, and we loved it more than anywhere in the whole world. But now, that's the mindset of everybody. And so you get these people from Pennsylvania or New York or South Carolina, and they are coming to visit our town because they have the same passion and love for it that we do. And it's like, this is just bizarre. And so, you know, like through the process of all this, when I was telling you about that great community that we had when I moved back home from college, and part of that community was, I mean, Erin was designing her stationery and she had Lucky Lux, and it was an internationally known stationery company. You know, Ben was piddling around in the wood shop making those decisions about, am I going to be a youth minister? Am I going to be a woodworker? And, you know, working through these things. And, you know, like our friends, the Raspberries, were dealing with, you know, like trying to push business back into our downtown. Because at the time when I was, I mean, that's been 2009. That was 20 years ago, which is crazy. But, or 10 years ago, sorry, 10 years ago, which is crazy. But they were trying to revitalize our town at that point. And there was like one coffee shop had just opened, a couple of retail spaces, maybe, one restaurant, and then a bunch of empty buildings or law offices or, you know, not for the public, like private spaces. And, you know, we kept researching back and seeing Laurel had a trolley system that ran through it at one point in, you know, the early 1900s. And just the people that founded our town came from Iowa, and they built this town so that their wives wouldn't go crazy, basically. You know, like they brought them to the middle of the woods, and then they built them this beautiful town so that they wouldn't feel like they were in the middle of the woods. And so you've got this amazing structure that through the years just had fallen down. And now we have these beautiful, amazing buildings that have all the potential in the world. But there they were, just sitting vacant. And we're a bunch of 20-year-olds that don't have any money to do anything, but we got some great ideas. And so slowly through the years, businesses started popping up in restaurants, and you know, you can't find a vacant space in Laurel anymore. But through all of that and through the lens of HGTV, we were able to really open up some amazing doors that just, I mean, never would have been possible before. It's basically just in use of gardening terms, it's the miracle grow. Like, HGTV didn't do anything, but it sure helped us make it happen a lot faster, if that makes sense.
Shine a light.
The passion was there. They just helped everything move along so much quicker. Because right now, we're in season 6, and they've done over 50 houses in our county.
Wow.
Yeah, and the majority of them are in our historic district. And so 50 houses have been saved from, for sure, demolition. And like, you can't, that sort of motivation just can't be bought. You know, like, you can have a lot of people pushing, but without that sort of snowball effect, I mean, it's just done really amazing things. And we're seeing it, you know, like little towns around us, like Ellisville is shining up, you know, like they're starting to, you know, paint facades and you become proud of their space. And we're just seeing through the lens of this, it's a snowball effect that we hope will just kind of continue to trickle throughout the state. Because again, what we have is I mean, it's one of those 1 in a million things to have a television show pop up in your town. But the things that we're doing might be happening quicker, but we're not doing anything different than what any other town can do. It just might take a little bit longer. And so that sort of message is kind of what we've been pushing out there of, to be able to see our town transform like it has, it's still taken 10 years, you know, like, and really longer than that. So yeah, hometown has been a really cool thing. And then being an artist in that, and then having the store before, my products have been able to been highlighted in a way that I never would have been able to get the exposure before. The Napiers have used a saying since the very beginning that I've loved, and they've always said, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. And so, you know, I live on the sailboat, I get it, you know, like, but it's been cool, you know, their success has spawned the success of other people, you know, by them being successful, they're making sure that it's not just them. Our town did a cool thing. One of our industry leaders in Laurel, they took a group of leaders from Laurel and flew them out to Waco, because the only thing that we had to look at whenever all of this starting was the Magnolia story, right? And so they went to Magnolia and said, well, what do you wish the city had done for you? And then they went to the city and said, well, what do you wish you had done before Magnolia started to prepare yourself for this? And, you know, this is back season 1 before we saw the influx of tourism and stuff. And unlike government typically happens, they actually came back and really implemented these things so that, you know, we were ready for growth. We were ready for some of these things to start happening. And to see how successful, you know, our whole downtown lifted because of it. It wasn't just, oh, Ben and Aaron and their friends have a store and it's really good, and then there's some other stuff around it. Like, our whole downtown has just become this really beautiful place. And hopefully we'll continue to grow that way.
Yeah. What's the art scene there like now?
Growing daily. You know, we have people that are moving from all over the country now. And so we're seeing some more people coming into our art scene. And, you know, with the Lauren Rogers being the hub of our community, we've always had amazing artists in our town. When I look back at the art teachers that I had while I was in Jones County before moving to college, just unbelievable. The people that were there teaching me, the work that they were doing was awesome. And so for them to be able to stop what they were doing and pour into me, man. But now it's just even growing. And, you know, there are some communities of arts popping up, but there's people like Jason Combs, who's this amazing metalwork sculptor that's right here in town. And, you know, he'll take an 8-foot sculpture and just drop it in downtown because he wants people to see it before it goes to its new home. And, you know, he has work. You know, I know he has lots of collectors like in the Louisiana area, and but to know that he's in Sharon, you know, he's 15 minutes up the road making these beautiful pieces. And then, like I said, Lisa Thames was another one that she's now with the Caron Gallery, and her landscapes are just unbelievable. And Mandy Buchanan, she was with the museum as the education director for a while, and her work, I mean, just so bright and vibrant and pattern driven. And so it's cool to see that there's so many different styles that are there, because just in that little spill that I just gave you there's a metalwork sculptor, traditional landscapes, pattern and bright and bold and, you know, colorful. And it's like that. I could go on for an hour talking about the different artists that are producing really beautiful work in our town. Yeah.
Well, for any artist or any upcoming artist or wannabe artist that might be listening to us, what would you tell them? Let's wrap up on that. What would you give them, your nuggets of wisdom?
Like,
yeah, I didn't mean to put no pressure or anything. Just change two people's lives.
I think, you know, like, the biggest thing to me is I wouldn't be the artist that I am if I didn't practice as much as I do. When I've taught for the last 10 years in some capacity, either at a private or public school. I taught art, I've taught lots of different things, but the thing that I always tell my students is you sit down and you draw something. And their first thing is, oh my gosh, Mr. Trest, that's so good. I'll never be able to draw like that. And so then I go, okay. I am 34 years old. I started drawing when I was 8. I was like, you do the math and tell me how many years have I practiced more than you've even been born? When you practice that long, you'll be that good. And so it's like, just the concept of art's not just a talent, it's a practice. It is something that we do every day. If I'm not painting, I've got a sketchbook. If I don't have a sketchbook, I'm drawing on a grocery list. Like, getting it out of my head and onto paper, it doesn't always look good. I just show you guys what looks good. The crappy stuff is still in my sketchbook. It doesn't ever see the light of day, but I have to get it out because I have to see what I did wrong so that I can do it better the next time. Looking back at work from high school, people are always excited and they're like, oh, that's the Adam Trest early work. And you're like, I would never show this to anyone because that was the early practice, right? You know, like not everybody's a Picasso and is a master figure drawer at age 10. Like we go through this development, even stuff that I did in college, I still am not pulling out and showing people today because that was a time of education where I was really learning concepts and theories and just the classical study of art. And so now the stuff that I do today is better because of that I already lived through. And so like letting people understand that, was I gifted as an artist as a child? Probably. Would I be as good if I had not practiced for the last 20 years? No. You know, like, so I think putting in the work, that's the part that I think would be the biggest advice that I have, because without the work, I mean, it's just like anything. It's just another practice.
Wonderful, wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for interviewing with us and just sharing your entire artist experience and what it's like being an artist in Mississippi today and trying to move careers forward and do your thing and be awesome. For anybody that wants to go check out more interviews, you can go to thelittleyellowbuilding.com. If you want to learn more about Adam Trest, I'm going to link everything below and you can check out our interview at the website. Other than that, have a great day and stay creative.